Our first speaker, Linda Sarsour, she'll be speaking on the state of protest and how to show up and how to show up responsibly as organizers and activists. She is an organizer, strategist, author, and co-founder of Until Freedom, the Women's March in Empower Change. Linda, thank you for being here. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you to Roots Action, to the Teaching Network for inviting me here today. I'm fired up, my friends. I just want you to know that. I want everyone to know that I was around in the Trump 1.0, and I'm here again, and I survived. I'm back at Trump 2.0. And there's many reasons that we can discuss, and maybe there's a teaching at some point to analyze how we got here. But that's not why we're here. We're here because our communities are under attack. We have been watching the past week, probably somewhere around 40 executive orders, many of them targeting the most marginalized people in our communities. And one of the most important things to watch from this administration is their crackdown on protesters and threatening protesters and making people and providing all this information, inundation of information, overstimulation of information, and really creating a lot of fear in our communities. And so what I want to share today around protesting. And as you all know, that's literally like what I do. I've been a protester for the last 25 years. And no protesting is without strategy. No protest is without purpose. And I think that's the most important thing that we're going to have to focus on in the next 4 years and beyond. Personally, I don't just protest based on election cycles. I don't protest based on presidential administrations. And that is the number one thing and lesson that we should hold together. Many of you know I was one of the co-founders of the Women's March on Washington back in the end of 2016, and you saw the mass mobilization that we put together. All of us, we were all there together in January of 2017. And if you remember, during the 4 years of Donald Trump, we were organizing every day. There were people outside, from the climate movement, from movements around racial justice and police accountability, immigration and immigrant rights, you name it. We were outside, and we were opposing, Supreme Court nominations. The scale of nonviolent civil disobedience was, again, consistent across the board. And then all of a sudden we have an election. All of a sudden Donald Trump is no longer the president. And then half the people that were supposed to stay outside with us all went back to brunch, because they decided that when you don't have Donald Trump as your president, all of a sudden racism, access to health care, or the lack of access to health care, all of that all of a sudden disappeared. And I hope that the one thing that we all learn here today is that we have to be a consistent movement and continue to center our causes and the very people that are being harmed. And most of the communities that we were fighting for, or the people who joined us to fight for in Trump 1.0, are still the same communities that are being harmed today. So as we're organizing, as we're mobilizing, we have to have some new protocols in place, because this administration right now has basically been very clear that they are targeting access to free speech for some people, not everybody, but for some people, for those who are opposing the agenda of this administration. And in particular, they have started, as you all know, with folks who have vulnerable immigration statuses. Either they're undocumented, or people, for example, who may have student visas, may be here on other types of visas. And so this administration is trying to find the most legal things that they can do to try to revoke and scare us, the rest of us, into submission, or really into silence. And so as you are organizing and mobilizing, I'm going to share a few things with you. Number one, be responsible. If you are going to engage in any sorts of acts of nonviolent civil disobedience, this may not be the time to invite our undocumented friends to participate. They should make those decisions on their own, but we should not be encouraging that, because it is a very vulnerable moment for our undocumented organizers. This is the moment to say to the undocumented friends that we have in our movement, we want you in our movement. We need your voices in our movement, but we also want to protect you, and we need you to be safe. And the protocols that you do and put forth, as in making sure that if there is nonviolent civil disobedience, that these folks understand the exact situation that's about to happen so they can make the right decisions for themselves. We have to be responsible not to put anyone in harm's way, especially if we understand what the consequences of the action that we're about to take. So that's very important in this moment. Also around sharing of information, even as we protest. But before we protest, oftentimes we have to educate people about where we want them to go and for what reason. Some of the things I've been seeing on the internet right now are very alarming and very disturbing. And they're coming from people who I would consider to be wonderful people, well-intentioned people who are putting memes on the internet saying ICE is on the corner of Cortelyou and McDonald Avenue. Please, if you have not verified that information yourself, if you cannot verify what time and what date that information came from, if you are not connected to an immigrant serving organization in that neighborhood who can verify this information, please do not share information irresponsibly. Because what we are doing is we are actually adding to the panic and anxiety of the very people we are claiming to want to protect and defend in our communities. And so for us as organizers, as activists, as people who are protesters, being as vigilant as possible when it comes to not being part of the disinformation and misinformation machine that is out there, that also oftentimes from our side is very well intentioned, but could really be harmful for our communities. I have 2 children who are public school teachers in New York City, and families are coming to the school saying they want to withdraw their children from school. There are people who are not showing up to work because of all this information that is moving around them. You know, a lot of folks right now don't know where to start. They don't know. They're like, there's so many issues. There's so many things. Everything's wrong. Today, I heard there's an executive order where Donald Trump wants to prepare 30,000 beds in Gitmo in Guantanamo. And we've been trying to shut Guantanamo down for the last, 20 some years. And so that every day there's something new. There's ban these people. We're going to take away visas from these protesters. We're going to stop all, withdraw from the World Health Organization. Like there's so much information that we are being inundated with. And for me, I say to people, you can't be everything to everybody. You can't protest everything. What I suggest for folks in this moment is to find a political home. Oftentimes, protesters are people who hear about something on the internet. They're like, okay, I'm in solidarity. This is about Palestine. This is about, immigrant rights or whatever. And they show up. And that's important. Showing up is important to these mobilizations. But the question is, who are you connected to? What are you doing the day after the protest? What network are you a part of? Are you part of a mutual aid network in your community? Are you partnered up with a local immigrant rights serving organization? There's so many people in your community that need you right now. And so my suggestions to folks right now and how we're showing up in this moment is people are also looking to people like us for some confidence. We have to let people know that we're going to prevail. All of us here are connected to a community, to ancestors, trust me, who have been through much worse than Donald Trump. The world is not all doomed, my friends. This is not the end of the world. It is a hard moment for our generation, and I promise you we're going to get through it. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be people in our communities who will be sacrificed along the way, and it will be a tragedy, and it will be outrageous. But people have had to sacrifice in the past. And so our job is to the best of our ability to protect the most vulnerable amongst us, but we cannot back down from an authoritarian regime. We cannot say we're going to wait out these 4 years. What we're going to do in the next 4 years is we will still mobilize, but we will also build quietly. We will build infrastructure. We will build power over the next 4 years. We will invest in organizations. We will start being more interdependent versus dependent on philanthropy and all the organizations that always leave us hanging in the most critical and important moments. And so I'm saying to all of you, find a political home. If you are an organizer of a protest and there are people that you know that are in the protest who are undocumented, make sure there are legal folks around. Make sure that you have legal support at these rallies, folks that understand the rights of those who are migrants or immigrants. Because guess what, folks? They do have rights, and you have rights as well. And moving forward, what can you do more than just showing up to a rally or a protest? What is a skill that you have that you can offer a network? And I'll just conclude with saying this. Here at the Teach-In Network, for example, many speakers that are experts in different areas, this is a skill we have. We have something to share, something to offer. We know something. We feel like we may be confident in some sort of information. So that's what we're contributing here. Some of us train in nonviolent civil disobedience and Kingian nonviolence. You may be a graphic designer. You may be someone who knows how to do grassroots fundraising. You may be someone who's good at media, who's a content creator, who's a videographer, a documentarian. You may be an attorney or a lawyer. You guess what? We need everybody. So figure out what your skill set is and try over the course of the next 2 weeks to do some research in your local community and say to an organization, this is the skill set that I have. These are the amount of hours that I'm able to give. And this is what I want to offer to the movement. Because right now, we really are all we got. Can't trust the Republicans for sure. Democrats ain't your friends either. I'm sorry to say, maybe some, a couple of nice ones, but overall, the political parties, the establishment, these are not the people who are going to protect us. Only we will protect us. And so I'm
Right.
here, I'm committed, I'm fired up, I'm not afraid of this administration. I'm going to keep doing what I've always been doing, and let's keep doing it. And remember that when 2028 rolls around, and Donald Trump, hopefully, God knows what they'll do, but let's just say 2028 rolls around and Donald Trump is not the president anymore. That is not an invitation for people to go back to brunch again and then come back again when you think another
Right.
authoritarian was here. So let's hope that we make a commitment to one another that we're going to continue this fight till all of our marginalized people are free in this country.
Thank you, Linda. Getting us fired up. A couple quick questions for you. Let's do two questions. You mentioned there's just a ton of bad news. It's nonstop coming from. It's a barrage from Trump. How do we focus in a blizzard of bad news? Real quick. Yeah, how do we focus on one issue and protest something when there's a new thing every day?
I think when you find a political home, and for example, if you're someone that's like, I really care about immigrants, I really care about migrants, I still want to be part of the pro-Palestinian movement in this country. I am worried about our planet. Everything else is moot if we don't have a planet to live on. When you find a political home, Ryan, what ends up happening is that you invest a lot of time on that issue. And
Yeah.
please feel confident that other people are in racial justice, other people will be in access to healthcare, defending those with disabilities. So don't ever feel like if you're not everywhere, that no one is anywhere else. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times we feel like we got to be everywhere. Just find a political home,
Yeah.
invest your time in that. And when there are times where you can show up once or twice or three times for an issue, that's fine. For example, you have a political home, you could donate at the immigrant rights or a community, but you may be able to donate to the climate justice movement or something of that nature. So don't feel like you got to be everything to everybody. Lastly, I'll say about the inundation of information. The bottom line is half the stuff that you're listening to are not implementable. They're not enforceable. They're actually not legal. Donald Trump's whole plan here is he has to keep promises to his supporters. So he has endless pens at the White House. They got thousands of pens. He signs an executive order saying, I'm going to end birthright citizenship. Just so what? Guess what? You can't do that, my friend. It's the 14th Amendment. You got to have a constitutional amendment to do it. My point is that don't believe that everything horrible coming out of this administration is going to happen. FYI, everyone went wild around the freezing of aid of grants to states. Guess what just happened today? OMB had to pull back their memo. This is what happens. Stay outraged. Get your universities to speak up. Get the hospital administrations outside. Get your local elected officials to start saying, we will not stand for this. And get what the administration had to back down. So again, find a political home. Understand that not everything bad that Donald Trump wants to do is actually enforceable. That kind of gives you a little bit more calm. And again, being rational in this moment is key to our survival. If we are in chaos all the time and in panic, we are going to weaken ourselves. And then the people who are supposed to follow the quote leaders are not going to follow leaders who are panicky, leaders who are all confused, leaders who are, on the internet saying, oh my God, it's the end of the world.
Right.
Take a deep breath and remember that your ancestors went through way worse than Donald Trump.
Thank you, Linda. And I just want to get this one last question is because you talked a lot about immigrants. How can we safely not cooperate with ICE?
We have rights, and even our migrant sisters and brothers, they have rights. There are so many incredible organizations like the New York Immigration Coalition. Obviously the ACLU has stuff that is out there. The Illinois Coalition on Immigrant and Refugee Rights has the immigrant rights community is incredible. They have multilingual know your rights information. If you don't have to, if ICE doesn't have a warrant, they're not allowed to come into your facility. They're not allowed to come into your home. That is actually part of the law. You don't have to talk to ICE agents. You can say, I need a lawyer. Like, this idea that our immigrant communities have no power or no rights is not true. So we just have to keep re-emphasizing that you have rights, and send people the resources to not only attend Know Your Rights training, but again, there are multilingual videos. I did a series with CUNY Clear and ACLU, New York Civil Liberties Union, and the ACLU, where we did actual videos. They're like kind of animations in Arabic, in Farsi, in Urdu, in Spanish, in Cantonese, Mandarin. We translated my over voices for the Arabic because we know that our community has rights. And so that's the other thing that I want protesters and organizers and activists to do, is to please, when you look at your migrant neighbors, your friends who are undocumented, who are in our movements, be like, look, you got rights. You are a valuable human being. And in this country, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen or a legal permanent resident, you have rights. So again, New York Immigration Coalition, the Illinois Coalition on Immigrant and Refugee Rights, their resources are crowdsourced. I'm sure teaching folks are going to put something together about that. And the reason, just to say, end with this, Ryan, is that I kept saying immigrants is because in this moment, we also can't do what they call oppression Olympics. There are so many communities that are under attack. I don't want anyone to think that I'm leaving anybody. We already know, I already know my people are like, it's about to go down in about 50 days. They're about to ban the Muslims again. You already know. And they're going to, take visas away from a lot of these foreign exchange students or foreign students. Many of them are from countries that, I'm from or connected to. But the point I'm saying is that immigrants right now are under attack, like blatantly under attack. Like this administration has been blatantly in New York City. The Department of Homeland Security secretary literally was just in New York yesterday wearing a police ice vest, showing you that this is a spectacle. They are creating spectacles, productions, major productions to scare our community. So again, Ryan, maybe that's something we could share with folks that are on this webinar today. Maybe post this webinar some resources around know your rights, because I think that's going to be really important. The more, when they say knowledge is power, I know it sounds like a cliche, but it absolutely is not. When you have knowledge, when you understand your rights, you can assert power in ways versus you not knowing that you have your rights or have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Linda. So great to have you. Really appreciate it.